My name's David, and I'm going to help you get through this CV0001 CompTIA Cloud Plus exam prep. Now we're going to go through quite a bit. We got 7 different domains we need to touch on, and we'll get through this pretty painlessly. Now I've been an instructor for about 11 years now. I've got about 18 years experience in IT. I've got, I don't know, somewhere around 20 certifications. I've trained for the United States military. I've worked at a community college for a few years, about 7 years at the college. And before that, I worked for a public school system as an IT tech for about 6 years. I've done online classes, virtual classes, in-person classes, and on-camera classes as well. So I've been doing this for a little bit. I know a little bit about IT. This Cloud Plus exam is really exciting. If it's your first one, you might want a little bit of experience with some Net Plus, maybe a little bit of A+. But if you've been in IT for a couple years, you're going to be just fine. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first one we'll start with is Domain 1 for our Cloud Plus. Again, for the CV0001 CompTIA Cloud Plus exam preparation. All right, in this first video, we're going to start talking about Module 1 concepts, models, and some terminology. Now, by the CompTIA objectives, this domain or objective is about 12% of the overall exam that you're going to see for the Cloud Plus exam. And that's out of 7 different domains or objectives that they have out there listed on their website. So what we're going to talk about in this domain is the models, the delivery models and some services, some terms and characteristics that you really need to be familiar with, and some storage concepts. So let's jump right into Module 1-1, our models. Now, a cloud service model is a set of IT-related services that's going to be offered by that cloud provider. Somebody that you're going to go get these cloud services from, they're going to follow a specific model, or you're going to agree on a specific model, depending on the services that you want. Now, that provider is responsible for supplying these cloud-based IT resources that you need, the cloud consumer, under what you're going to sign as it's called a service level agreement, or an SLA. You can kind of think of it like the cloud consumer or you're buying or leasing their IT infrastructure from that cloud provider. So you're just kind of renting some computer power out of the cloud. They have something out there that you need, some type of service, and you're just kind of renting that, so you don't have to necessarily buy infrastructure or buy software or whatever the case may be. And we're going to see these in these different models. Now, it's critical to understand who's going to be responsible for these services that are actually going to be hosted in the cloud. Because as soon as you give power to some cloud provider, well, your data is up there now. So we have to have all this written out in a service level agreement of who's responsible for what, who's backing up, who's taking care of the infrastructure, whose data is it, how are you going to separate my data from other people's data, because, well, there's going to be lots of people up there in the cloud. So all this has to be spelled out. So before an organization migrates any piece of their business up to the cloud, they need to understand who's in control of what resources, who's going to be responsible for what. Again, we're usually going to put this in our service level agreement, or that SLA. Now, some different models that you need to be familiar with for this exam. We have 3 core models that you may have heard of before. The IaaS, or the Infrastructure as a Service, the PaaS, the Platform as a Service, or the SaaS, the Software as a Service. And we're also going to touch on some more in another segment called the Database as a Service, Communications as a Service, the Business Process as a Service, and Anything as a Service. Yes, that's actually one, Anything as a Service. So let's get started on that IaaS, that Infrastructure as a Service. Very popular model. This model is where the cloud consumer outsources the responsibility of their infrastructure to the external cloud provider. So if you think infrastructure, you think computers and servers and hardware and stuff like that. Well, that's out there with them. So not only the cloud provider not only owns the equipment, that provides the infrastructure resources, but they also are responsible for the ongoing operation. So they're taking care of those computers. They're taking care of those servers. You don't have that responsibility. They're going to take care of all the maintenance of all those resources, the heating, the cooling. So you don't have to have a dedicated comm closet now. You don't have to have a dedicated IT staff to do those updates on that server. These cloud providers are going to do all of that for you. And that's very popular to a lot of small businesses that can't necessarily afford that robust infrastructure that they may need for their businesses. Now, infrastructure as a service is usually pay as you use type charging. So if you use their infrastructure, you can pay. Now you can do monthly charges, you can set up quarterly. Again, that's going to be in your SLA or whatever charging model that cloud provider has, but you can also use it per second, per minute, per hour. You can pay however you go. So when an organization utilizes this IaaS, they no longer have to buy, maintain, or upgrade that server hardware. Now that's going to help you save on resources, might help you save on time, might even help you save on money, again, depending on that SLA and agreement you have with your cloud provider, but you don't have to maintain any of that equipment in-house. It's all out there in the cloud, or somebody else is going to take care of that for you. Now, some services offered by an IaaS provider, they will take care of the management, they will take care of the network, the computers, all the computations that go on up there, the storage, and any of that security. All of that stuff that you might have to deal with if you had the server sitting in your comm closet down the hall or wherever it is in your business. So some different examples of IaaS, Amazon's EC2, Windows Azure, Rackspace, and Google Computer Engine are all different examples of IaaS. Now we also have a platform as a service, PaaS. Now this enables customers to actually deploy applications without spending all that money and resources and the cost that they would be obligated to pay if they actually had to purchase and maintain their own infrastructure. So you can think of a platform as a service kind of sitting on top of an IaaS if you want to. So customers either purchase or create applications or services that are available exclusively over the internet using this platform. So this allows customers to focus on application development and not really worry about the server systems or the infrastructure that they would have to put that applications on top of. They can dedicate themselves to just application development. Now, some services offered by the PaaS providers, well, they might give you some development tools like .NET or Java tools out there so you can do that application development. They might give you database access like Ruby on Rails or Perl or SQL or whatever you need to create your application and give you that back end for that database. Now these consumers APIs or those application programmable interfaces, they actually tie into these provider services that they're giving you. Again, like the .NET or Java or those database backends that you may need for your applications. Some different PaaS examples that you need to be aware of: Windows Azure again, Heroku, Force.com, the Google App Engine, Apache Stratos, all good examples of PaaS. And then we have software as a service, SaaS. Now, this cloud service model allows a cloud consumer to actually take advantage of software delivery model that provides an on-demand applications over the internet using a web browser. Now, I said applications, but they're not creating the applications here. We're actually using applications that are being provided down to us. So, like other cloud service models, SaaS is hosted at a cloud provider so that cloud consumer, you or the customer, they don't need to purchase the hardware required to deploy or operate these applications that they're going to need for their business processes. So some services offered by that SaaS provider, like billing, think about accounting, email, any other line of business applications that you may need for your business to succeed, but you don't necessarily want to buy tons of licensing. You want to have that software out in the cloud so you can just jump on a web browser, go do what you need to do, and you don't have to worry about infrastructure. You don't have to worry about application development. You don't even have to worry about purchasing software or, like I said, those licenses for dozens of computers in your organization. So some Two good examples that I can think of right off the top of my head would be Google Apps and like Office 365. Everything you're going to need for an office environment. You have your Word documentation, your spreadsheets, low-end databases, presentation software is out there. All that's going to be available to you out in the cloud. So you don't, again, don't have to buy licensing, individual licensing or site licensing. You buy some space up there in the cloud and you pull down your applications from there. Now, in the next segment, we're going to continue with some different cloud models. Again, ones that build upon the core models that we just covered of IaaS, PaaS, and that SaaS.